The thing about running into burning buildings for a living is that you develop a pretty good sense for when something's about to go up in flames. Right now, sitting in my kitchen at 6:30 in the morning, watching my wife Elise put on lipstick she never wore to work before, I could practically smell the smoke. "New client today?" I asked, keeping my voice casual as I sipped my coffee. The bitter taste matched my mood perfectly. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. Elise glanced at me in the hallway mirror, her reflection catching the morning light streaming through our bay window. At 31, she still turned heads, all blonde hair and sharp business suits that cost more than my monthly salary at the firehouse. "Yeah, Owen Mitchell. He's looking for something upscale for his family." She applied another coat of that red lipstick, the expensive kind that came in a gold tube. Might take most of the day to show him around. Owen Mitchell. The name had been coming up a lot lately, always accompanied by Elise's new habit of checking her phone every 5 minutes and taking calls in the other room. As a firefighter, you learn to pay attention to patterns. Smoke doesn't just appear, there's always a source. "What's his budget?" I asked. $2 million range. He's got serious money." She grabbed her keys from the counter, avoiding my eyes. "Don't wait up if I'm late. You know how these wealthy clients are. They want to see everything twice." After 15 years of marriage, I knew when my wife was lying. It was in the way she spoke just a little too fast, how her voice pitched slightly higher. The same tells that helped me read burning buildings were now telling me my marriage was about to collapse. The front door closed with a soft click, and I was alone with my suspicions and a growing knot in my stomach that had nothing to do with the firehouse coffee. My phone buzzed, a text from Rick Castellano, my partner at Station 19. "Coffee run. You want the usual poison?" "Make it a double," I texted back. "Long day ahead." If only I'd known how long. 3 hours later, I was checking equipment when Rick found me in the truck bay, his weathered face creased with concern. "You look like hell, Brandon," he said, handing me a steaming cup. "What's eating you?" Rick and I had been partners for 8 years. We'd pulled people from car wrecks, fought fires that reached 3-alarm status, and saved each other's lives more times than I could count. If anyone deserved the truth, it was him. "I think Elise is having an affair." The words hung in the air between us like smoke from a dying fire. Rick whistled low, leaning against the fire truck's chrome bumper. "You sure about that? I mean, Elise always seemed..." "Seemed what?" "I don't know, man. Devoted. She was always bragging about you at the neighborhood barbecues, showing off that beach house you built." The beach house. I'd spent 2 years of weekends building that place with my own hands, every beam and nail a labor of love. It sat on 3 acres of prime waterfront property that Elise had found through her real estate connections. Our sanctuary. Our future retirement dream. The irony wasn't lost on me that she might be using it to betray everything we'd built together. "Things change," I said. "People change." "What are you going to do?" Before I could answer, the alarm bells rang out through the station. Structure fire on Maple Street. A 2-story colonial with possible occupants trapped on the 2nd floor. As we suited up and rolled out, sirens wailing, I pushed thoughts of Elise and Owen Mitchell to the back of my mind. Whatever was happening in my marriage would have to wait. Right now, someone needed saving. The fire was a bad one. An electrical short in the basement had spread to the main floor before the family realized what was happening. By the time we arrived, flames were licking at the 2nd-story windows where an elderly man was trapped in his bedroom. I went up the ladder while Rick coordinated the water lines below. The smoke was thick, visibility near zero, but I found the man conscious and mobile. As I helped him toward the window, he grabbed my arm with surprising strength. "My wife's photos," he gasped. 40 years of memories. They're in the dresser." I looked at the dresser he indicated, then at the flames creeping under the bedroom door. We had maybe 30 seconds before this room became an oven. "I'll get them," I promised, and I meant it. Those photos represented a lifetime of love, commitment, and shared memories. Everything I thought I had with Elise, and everything this old man was about to lose to the flames. I got him down the ladder safely, then went back for the photos. The dresser drawer was stuck from the heat, but I pried it open and grabbed 3 photo albums before the floor started groaning beneath my feet. Outside, the old man wept as I handed him his memories. His wife had gone the year before, and those pictures were all he had left of their life together. "Thank you," he whispered. "Thank you for saving what mattered most." As I watched him clutch those albums to his chest, something crystallized in my mind. I was fighting to save other people's memories while my own marriage burned down around me. It was time to stop playing defense and start taking action. That evening, I sat in my truck outside Elise's real estate office, watching the windows. Her car was still in the parking lot, but the lights in her office were off. The building was supposed to close at 6, and it was nearly 8. My phone showed no missed calls, no texts explaining where she was or when she'd be home. I drove home through streets I'd traveled thousands of times, past houses where I'd responded to calls, through neighborhoods where people trusted me to protect what mattered most to them. But I couldn't even protect my own marriage. The house felt different when I walked in. Too quiet, too empty. Elise's coffee cup sat in the sink, lipstick stains on the rim like evidence of a crime I was still trying to solve. I found myself in our bedroom, standing before her dresser like I'd stood before that burning dresser just hours earlier. The difference was, I wasn't here to save anything. I was here to find the truth. The top drawer held the usual things: jewelry, perfume, scarves. But tucked behind a jewelry box, I found something that made me freeze. A second cell phone. It was a cheap flip phone, the kind people bought when they didn't want their calls traced. My hands shook as I opened it and scrolled through the text messages. The first few made my stomach clench. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place?" "Oh, yes. He's working a double shift. We'll have all afternoon." "E. You're incredible. I can't stop thinking about yesterday." "Oh, neither can I. Bring wine. The good stuff?" E. The messages went back 3 months. 3 months of lies, 3 months of client meetings and late showings and difficult buyers who needed extra attention. I scrolled to the most recent exchange, sent just this morning. "Beach house this weekend?" "Oh, perfect. Brandon will never think to look there." E. Can't wait to have you all to myself in the place he built. There's something poetic about that." "Oh, don't be cruel, but yes, there is." E. I stared at that last message until the words blurred. They were planning to use our beach house, the place I'd built with my own hands, as a symbol of our love, for their affair. The phone slipped from my numb fingers and clattered to the hardwood floor. I heard Elise's car in the driveway 20 minutes later. By then, I'd returned the phone to its hiding place and was sitting in the living room, pretending to watch television. "Hey, baby," she called out, her voice bright and cheerful. "Sorry I'm so late. Owen Mitchell is incredibly demanding, but he's ready to make an offer on the Riverside property." She appeared in the doorway, and I studied her face for any sign of guilt or deception. Her makeup was perfect, not a hair out of place. She'd gotten very good at covering her tracks. "How was your day?" she asked, settling onto the couch beside me. "Saved a man's house," I said. "Well, most of it anyway. Got his photo albums out before they burned." "That's wonderful, honey. You're such a hero." The word hero hit me like a physical blow. Heroes saved people. Heroes protected what was precious. Heroes didn't sit passively while their lives fell apart. "Elise," I said, turning to face her, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Her smile faltered slightly. "Of course. What is it? Are you having an affair?" The question hung between us like smoke in a closed room. Elise's face went through a series of micro-expressions: surprise, fear, calculation, and finally indignation. "Brandon, how could you ask me that? After 15 years of marriage, how could you possibly think I would cheat on you?" She was good. If I hadn't seen the phone, hadn't read the messages, I might have believed her. "I've been feeling like something's off between us," I said carefully. "The late nights, the new clothes, the way you're always on your phone." "I'm building my career," she said, her voice rising. "I'm sorry if my success threatens you, but I thought you'd be proud of how well I'm doing." "I am proud of you, but nothing." She stood up abruptly. "I can't believe you'd accuse me of something like that. I'm going to bed." She started toward the stairs, then paused and turned back to me. "For what it's worth, Owen Mitchell invited me to show him some waterfront properties this weekend. We might end up at the beach house to compare it to what's on the market. I hope that doesn't trigger more paranoid accusations." She was telling me exactly what she planned to do, confident that I'd never suspect the truth. "Elise," I said quietly, "if you take him to our beach house, we're done." She laughed, actually laughed. "Don't be so dramatic, Brandon. It's just business." But her eyes flickered with something that might have been fear before she turned and headed upstairs. I sat alone in the living room until well past midnight, staring at the framed photo on the mantel. Elise and me at the beach house construction site, both of us grinning and covered in sawdust, her arms wrapped around my waist as we celebrated laying the foundation. That man in the photo had no idea what was coming. He still believed in forever. He still thought love was enough. I envied him. Friday morning brought rain. the kind of steady, relentless downpour that turns the world gray and makes everything feel like it's drowning. Perfect weather for what I had planned. Elise left early, claiming she needed to prepare for her weekend with the client. She packed an overnight bag with clothes I'd never seen before and enough makeup to supply a department store counter. "I'll probably stay at the Marriott near the beach," she said, not meeting my eyes. "Owen wants to start early tomorrow morning." "Of course he does." She paused at the door. "Brandon, about what you said last night." "Don't worry about it," I said. "I trust you." The lie came easily. I'd learned a lot about deception in the past 24 hours. After she left, I made 2 phone calls. The first was to Captain Mills, requesting a personal day. The second was to a number I'd found in Owen Mitchell's social media profile. "Hello?" The voice was crisp, professional. "Is this Jenna Mitchell?" "Yes. Who's calling?" "My name is Brandon Cole. I'm a firefighter here in town, and I believe your husband is having an affair with my wife." The silence stretched so long I thought she'd hung up. "I see," she said finally. "And you're calling me because?" "Because they're planning to spend the weekend together at a beach house I built with my own hands. I thought you might want to know." Another pause. "What exactly are you proposing, Mr. Cole?" "I'm proposing we give them the surprise of their lives." Jenna Mitchell turned out to be exactly what I'd hoped for. Smart, furious, and ready for action. She was a lawyer who specialized in family law, which meant she knew exactly how to handle cheating spouses. We met at a coffee shop downtown to plan our approach. "I've suspected for months," she said, stirring her latte with more force than necessary. "Late nights, mysterious phone calls, new clothes, the classic signs." "How long have you been married?" 12 years. We have 2 kids, Emma and Tyler, 8 and 10. Her jaw tightened. "Owen travels for work, or at least that's what he tells me. I'm guessing those business trips weren't always business." I showed her printouts of the text messages I'd photographed from Elise's burner phone. Jenna read them with the detached professionalism of someone reviewing legal documents, but I could see the hurt in her eyes. "The beach house," she said. "Tell me about it." "I spent 2 years building it. Every weekend, every vacation day. Elise would bring me lunch and help with the smaller jobs. It was going to be our retirement home. And now they're using it for their affair. Not if we get there first?" Jenna smiled for the first time since we'd met. It wasn't a pleasant smile. "What did you have in mind?" I outlined my plan. It was simple, legal, and guaranteed to be memorable. Jenna listened, asked pointed questions, and made suggestions that were both practical and devastating. "I like it," she said when I finished, "but I want to bring the kids." "Are you sure? This could get ugly." Owen walked out on his family the moment he started this affair. It's time Emma and Tyler learned what kind of man their father really is. By Saturday afternoon, everything was in place. I'd driven to the beach house early that morning, using my spare key to let myself in. The place looked exactly as Elise and I had left it after our last visit, clean, welcoming, ready for guests. I'd installed security cameras throughout the house months earlier after a break-in at a neighbor's place. Elise had forgotten about them, but I hadn't. I spent an hour checking angles and making sure everything was recording properly. The storm that had started Friday was intensifying. Rain lashed the windows, and wind howled around the corners of the house like something alive and angry. Lightning flickered in the distance, illuminating the churning waters of the lake. Perfect ambiance for a confrontation. Jenna arrived at 4 o'clock with Emma and Tyler. The kids were curious about the emergency that had brought them to a stranger's lake house, but Jenna had promised them answers soon. "They're good kids," she told me as we watched them explore the living room. "They deserve better than Owen." "They'll get it," I promised. "After today, Owen won't be in any position to hurt anyone." At 5:30, headlights swept across the front windows. I peered through the rain and saw Elise's BMW pulling into the driveway, followed by a silver Mercedes that had to be Owen's. "Showtime," I murmured. Jenna gathered the kids in the kitchen while I positioned myself in the living room. The house was dark except for a few strategically placed candles. I'd thrown the main breaker to create atmosphere. I heard their voices on the front porch, muffled by the rain and wind. "Can't believe you built this place," Owen was saying. "Your husband has good taste." "Had good taste," Elise replied. "I'm thinking of selling it after the divorce." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I forced myself to stay calm. They were planning my future without me, dividing up assets from a marriage I didn't even know was over. The front door opened and they stumbled inside, laughing and soaked from the rain. Elise fumbled for the light switch. "The power must be out," she said. "There should be candles in the kitchen." "Forget the candles," Owen said, pulling her close. "I can see everything I need to see." They kissed in the doorway, and I watched my wife melt into another man's arms in the house I'd built for our future. 15 years of marriage, reduced to a betrayal in candlelight. I let them get comfortable. They opened a bottle of wine, expensive stuff that Owen had brought. They settled onto the couch, hands roaming, voices getting lower and more intimate. "I can't believe we're finally here," Elise whispered. "In his house, in his bed." "There's something poetic about it," Owen replied, echoing his text from days earlier, taking what he thinks is his. That's when I decided they'd heard enough. I stepped out of the shadows, and their intimate moments shattered like glass. "You're right, Owen," I said conversationally. "There is something poetic about it." Elise screamed and jumped back from Owen like he was on fire. Owen, to his credit, recovered quickly and stood up, puffing out his chest in a display of dominance that might have been intimidating if he wasn't still holding a wine glass. "What the hell are you doing here?" Elise demanded. "It's my house," I said. "I should be asking you that question." "Brandon, this isn't what it looks like. Really, because it looks like my wife is having an affair with a married man in the house I built with my own hands. But please, tell me what it actually is." Owen stepped forward, wine sloshing in his glass. "Look, buddy, I think there's been a misunderstanding." "Oh, there's been a misunderstanding, all right." I pulled out my phone and started reading from the screenshots I'd taken. "Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Same place? You're incredible. I can't stop thinking about yesterday. Can't wait to have you all to myself in the place he built." Both of them went pale in the candlelight. "Where did you get those?" Elise whispered. "From your burner phone, the one you hide behind your jewelry box." "You went through my things?" "I went through my wife's things in my house that I pay for with my salary. Technically, everything here belongs to me, including that phone." Owen set down his wine glass and tried to regain control of the situation. "Look, Brandon, I know this is difficult, but adults sometimes what? Lie to their spouses, betray their families, use other people's homes for their affairs. We were going to tell you," Elise started. "When? After you sold the house out from under me? After you filed for divorce and tried to take half of everything I've worked for?" Thunder crashed outside, rattling the windows. In the flickering candlelight, both of them looked like the criminals they were. "I think we should all calm down," Owen said, but his voice was shaking now. "I am calm," I replied. "In fact, I'm calmer than I've been in months. It's amazing how peaceful you feel when you finally know the truth." That's when Jenna walked into the room with Emma and Tyler. "Hello, Owen," she said quietly. Owen's wine glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the hardwood floor. His face went from pale to gray to green in the space of a heartbeat. "Jenna? How did you? Daddy?" Emma's voice was small and confused. "Why are you here? Who is this lady?" Elise looked between Owen and Jenna like she was watching a tennis match, finally understanding that this wasn't a coincidence. "You planned this," she said to me. "I planned to catch my cheating wife with her lover. Yes, Jenna planned to catch her cheating husband with his mistress. It seemed efficient to coordinate our efforts." Tyler, the older of Owen's kids, was quicker to understand what was happening. "Dad, are you cheating on Mom?" The question hung in the air like smoke from a fire that was just beginning to burn. Owen opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. No words came out. "Answer your son," Jenna said coldly. "Tell Tyler why you're in another man's house with another man's wife while your family thinks you're at a business conference." This isn't," Owen stammered. "It's not what?" I asked. "Not an affair? Not a betrayal? Not you planning to destroy two families for a few hours of fun?" Emma started to cry. Tyler put his arm around his sister, his young face hard with an understanding no 10-year-old should have to carry. Elise finally found her voice. "The children shouldn't be here for this." "You're right," Jenna said. "Children shouldn't have to see their parents destroy their families. But here we are." Owen tried to approach his kids, but Tyler stepped back, pulling Emma with him. "Don't touch us," the boy said. "Don't ever touch us again." The words hit Owen like a physical blow. He staggered backward, his face crumpling. "Tyler, please, let me explain." "Explain what?" Tyler's voice cracked with emotion. "Explain how you lied to us? How you lied to Mom? How you're a cheater and a liar?" Thunder crashed again, closer this time. The storm was directly overhead now, matching the chaos inside the house. Owen turned to me, desperation replacing his earlier arrogance. "Look, Brandon, we can work this out. Man to man. There's no need to involve the kids or lawyers or what? Or consequences?" I stepped closer to him, and he backed away. "You made your choices, Owen. You chose to pursue my wife. You chose to use my house for your affair. You chose to lie to your children and destroy your family. Now you get to live with those choices." "I'll end it," he said quickly. "Right now. It's over. We'll never see each other again." "You're right about that," Jenna said. "Because I'm filing for divorce Monday morning, and I'm going for full custody." "You can't do that." "I can, and I will. I'm a family lawyer, Owen. I know exactly what I can do." Elise, who had been silent during this exchange, suddenly exploded. "This is insane. You can't ambush us like this. You can't just—" "Can't what?" I interrupted. "Can't catch you in the act? Can't expose your lies? Can't defend my marriage and my home? We have rights. You had rights. You had a husband who loved you, a beautiful home, a secure future. You traded all of that for a few afternoons with a married man." Lightning flashed outside, illuminating the room in stark white light. In that moment, I saw everything clearly, the wreckage of 2 marriages, the pain in those children's eyes, the pathetic figures Owen and Elise had become. Owen made one last desperate play. He lunged toward me, maybe thinking he could intimidate me into backing down. He was wrong. I sidestepped his clumsy charge and grabbed the fire extinguisher from the wall. Before he could recover his balance, I triggered it, covering him in white foam from head to toe. He stood there, dripping and gasping, looking like a snowman that had been caught in a rainstorm. "That's for using my house," I said calmly, "and for making those children cry." Emma and Tyler stared at their foam-covered father, and suddenly Tyler started to laugh. It was a shocked, almost hysterical sound, but it was laughter nonetheless. "He looks like a ghost," Emma giggled through her tears. Even Jenna smiled. "A very pathetic ghost." Owen wiped foam from his eyes and glared at me with pure hatred. "You'll pay for this, Cole. I'll sue you for assault, for what? Using a fire extinguisher in my own home when you charged at me? Good luck with that." I turned to Elise, who was staring at the scene with horror and disbelief. "I want you out of my house," I said quietly. "Both of you. Now. Brandon, please. Now." They gathered their things in silence, Owen still dripping foam, Elise clutching her designer purse like a shield. At the door, she turned back one last time. "This isn't over," she said. "Yes, it is," I replied. "It's been over for months. I just didn't know it yet." After they left, the house felt different, cleaner somehow, like the air after a fire has finally been extinguished. Jenna was comforting her children, but Tyler looked up at me with something like respect in his eyes. "That was awesome," he said. "The fire extinguisher thing." "Violence isn't the answer to problems," I told him. "But sometimes people need to understand there are consequences for their actions." "Will you teach me how to use one of those?" he asked. "Tyler," Jenna warned. "It's okay," I said. "Every kid should know basic fire safety." As the storm raged outside, I found myself thinking about the old man whose photos I'd saved from the fire, his 40 years of memories rescued from the flames. I'd just watched 15 years of my own memories burn to ash in a single evening, but unlike that old man, I wasn't mourning what I'd lost. I was planning what came next. Monday morning brought clarity along with the coffee. I sat in Captain Mill's office at Station 19, watching him read through the documentation I'd prepared over the weekend. "Jesus, Brandon," he said, setting down the photos I'd printed from the security cameras. "She really did it. In your own house. The house I built for our retirement. The house she's now planning to sell as part of the divorce settlement." Mills leaned back in his chair. The man had been fighting fires for 30 years, and he'd seen every kind of human tragedy imaginable. But betrayal still hit him hard, especially when it involved one of his men. "What do you need from me?" he asked. "Time off to handle the legal stuff, and maybe some advice from someone who's been married longer than I have." Mills had been married to his wife Sarah for 35 years. They were the kind of couple that still held hands at the grocery store and finished each other's sentences. "My advice? Don't let her take you to the cleaners. You built that house with your own hands, you've been the steady income for 15 years, and now you have proof of adultery. Any decent lawyer should be able to protect your assets." "I'm not worried about the money," I said. "I'm worried about my reputation. Small town like this, gossip travels fast." Mills smiled grimly. "Son, you caught your cheating wife red-handed and humiliated her boyfriend with a fire extinguisher. In this town, that makes you a hero, not a victim." He was right. By Tuesday afternoon, the story had spread through the firehouse, the police department, and half the local businesses. The version that came back to me was even better than what actually happened. According to the rumor mill, I'd caught them in bed and chased Owen through the house with the fire extinguisher while his wife and kids cheered me on. Rick found me in the equipment bay, grinning like he'd won the lottery. "Dude, you're famous," he said. My wife heard the story at the grocery store, the bank, and the post office. By the time it got to the post office, you were some kind of action hero. Great. That's exactly what I need. Are you kidding? This is the best thing that could have happened. Everyone's on your side. Even the women are calling Elise a fool for cheating on you. That part was true. I'd gotten calls and texts from neighbors, coworkers, and people I barely knew, all offering support and expressing outrage on my behalf. Mrs. Dorsey from down the street had brought me a casserole and spent 20 minutes telling me what she really thought about that hussy wife of yours. But the real vindication came Wednesday evening, when I ran into Joe and Tara at the hardware store. Joe and Tara were Elise's closest friends, her partners in crime, the ones who'd covered for her during the affair. They'd been to our house dozens of times, eaten my cooking, laughed at my jokes, and pretended to care about my life while helping my wife deceive me. They were in the paint section, probably helping someone redecorate after a divorce when they saw me. The conversation they'd been having gone instantly. "Brandon," Joe said nervously, "how are you holding up?" "Better than expected," I replied, loading a can of primer into my cart. "How's Elise?" The question hung in the air like smoke. Both women looked uncomfortable, shifting their weight and avoiding eye contact. "She's processing everything," Tara said carefully. "I bet she is. It must be hard, having your lies exposed like that. In front of children, no less." Joe's face flushed. "Look, Brandon, we know you're hurt, but what? But I should have been more understanding about my wife's affair? But I shouldn't have embarrassed her by catching her in the act? That's not what we meant. Then what did you mean?" I stepped closer, and both women backed away. "Did you mean I should have kept quiet while she destroyed our marriage? Should I have pretended not to notice when she started lying to me every day?" "We didn't know," Tara started. "You didn't know what? That she was cheating? That she had a burner phone? That she was planning to use our beach house for her affairs?" Both women went pale. They'd known. Maybe not all the details, but they'd known enough. "You helped her," I continued. "You covered for her. You encouraged her. You made me look like a paranoid fool when I started asking questions. You were supposed to be our friends, and you helped destroy our marriage." "It wasn't like that," Joe protested. "What was it like then? Explain it to me." Neither of them could meet my eyes. They mumbled excuses and apologies, but the damage was done. They'd chosen sides in the affair, and they'd chosen wrong. "Stay away from me," I told them. "Both of you. And tell Elise that if she wants to communicate with me, she can do it through lawyers." I left them standing in the paint aisle, looking like they'd been hit by a truck. The confrontation felt good, but it also crystallized something I'd been thinking about since the weekend. Elise hadn't just betrayed our marriage, she'd corrupted our entire social circle. Joe and Tara weren't the only ones who'd known about the affair. There were others, people who'd smiled to my face while knowing my wife was making a fool of me. It was time to clean house. Thursday morning, I drove to Elise's real estate office. She worked for Prestige Properties, a high-end firm that specialized in luxury homes and commercial properties. Her boss, Margaret Walsh, was a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s who'd built the business from nothing and had zero tolerance for anything that might damage her company's reputation. "Mr. Cole," Margaret said when her secretary announced me, "I'm so sorry about what you're going through. Elise is a valued employee, but what she's done to you is unconscionable." "I appreciate that, Mrs. Walsh. I'm here because I thought you should know that Elise has been using her position to facilitate her affair." Margaret's expression hardened. "Explain." I pulled out copies of the text messages from Elise's burner phone, highlighting the ones that mentioned client meetings and property showings that were actually a fair rendezvous. She's been lying to clients, using company time for personal business, and potentially exposing your firm to liability issues. What if a real client had tried to reach her during one of these fake appointments? Margaret studied the messages with the focused attention of someone who'd spent decades building a business reputation. "This is completely unacceptable," she said finally. "Elise has violated every standard of professional conduct we have." "I'm not asking you to fire her," I said. "I'm just making sure you have all the facts." "I appreciate your discretion, Mr. Cole, but I can assure you this will be addressed appropriately." By Friday afternoon, word had spread through the real estate community that Elise Cole was taking a leave of absence to deal with personal issues. In a business built on trust and relationships, that was the end of the road. But I wasn't done yet. Saturday morning, I drove to Owen's workplace, a corporate sales office in a gleaming downtown building. Owen worked for a medical device company, selling equipment to hospitals and clinics. It was the kind of job that required trust, reliability, and a spotless reputation. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and made a phone call to the company's human resources department. "I'd like to report a potential ethics violation," I told the woman who answered. "One of your employees has been having an affair with a client's wife and using company time and resources to facilitate the relationship. Can you provide specifics?" I provided Owen's name, department, and a detailed timeline of his affair with Elise, including the text messages that proved he'd been lying about business trips and client meetings. "We take these allegations very seriously," the HR representative assured me. "There will be a full investigation." The investigation took exactly 3 business days. By the following Friday, Owen Mitchell was cleaning out his desk. Rick found me at the firehouse that evening, shaking his head in amazement. "You're like a one-man wrecking crew," he said. "First you catch them in the act, then you get them both fired. What's next?" "Next, I rebuild my life without them in it." "And Elise? What's she doing while you're systematically destroying her world?" That was a good question. I'd heard through the neighborhood grapevine that she was staying with her mother, that she'd been seen crying at the grocery store, that she had tried to call in favors with other real estate firms only to find that word of her personal issues had spread throughout the industry. I got my answer Sunday afternoon when she showed up at my front door. She looked terrible. Pale, thin, with dark circles under her eyes that makeup couldn't hide. The confident, put-together woman who'd walked out of this house a week earlier had been replaced by someone who looked broken and desperate. "Brandon, please," she said when I opened the door. "We need to talk." "We have nothing to talk about. Call my lawyer." Please, just 5 minutes. I need to explain." "Explain what? How you've been cheating on me for months? How you plan to use our beach house for your affair? How you were going to divorce me and take half of everything I'd worked for?" "It wasn't supposed to happen like this." "How was it supposed to happen, Elise? You were going to cheat on me quietly and then leave me quietly? You were going to destroy our marriage without any consequences?" She started crying then, the kind of desperate tears that come when someone realizes they've lost everything that mattered. "I made a mistake," she sobbed. "A terrible mistake. But we can fix this. We can go to counseling. We can work through it." "There's nothing to work through. You made your choice when you bought that burner phone. You made your choice when you started lying to me every day. You made your choice when you decided our marriage was worth less than a few afternoons with Owen Mitchell. He meant nothing to me. Then why did you risk everything for him? Why did you throw away 15 years of marriage for someone who meant nothing?" She couldn't answer that question because there was no good answer. She'd destroyed our marriage for the thrill of an affair, for the excitement of sneaking around, for the ego boost of being desired by another man. "I love you," she said desperately. "I've always loved you." "No, you loved the security I provided. You loved the house I built, the steady income, the respectability of being married to a firefighter. But you didn't love me enough to stay faithful." "Brandon, please." "It's over, Elise. Sign the divorce papers, take your personal belongings, and move on with your life. But stay away from me, stay away from my friends, and stay away from my house." I closed the door on her tears and her pleas. Through the window, I watched her sit in her car for 20 minutes, crying and probably hoping I'd change my mind. I didn't. That night, I called Jenna Mitchell to see how she was handling her own divorce proceedings. "Owen's been begging me to reconsider," she said. "He claims it was all a midlife crisis, that he's learned his lesson, that he'll do anything to save our marriage." "What did you tell him?" "I told him that some mistakes can't be undone. The kids won't even talk to him. Emma has nightmares, and Tyler keeps asking if it's his fault that Daddy left. I'm sorry they're going through that. They'll be okay. Kids are resilient. And honestly, they're better off without Owen's influence. I'd rather raise them alone than have them think his behavior is acceptable." After we hung up, I sat in my living room looking at the empty spaces where Elise's things used to be. The house felt different now, not empty, but clean. Like the air after a fire has been extinguished and the smoke has finally cleared. I'd spent the week systematically dismantling the life Elise and Owen had tried to build on the ashes of our marriages. I'd exposed their lies, destroyed their careers, and turned their social circles against them. But I wasn't finished yet. The real reckoning was still to come. The call came Tuesday morning while I was checking equipment at the firehouse. It was my lawyer, David Chen, and he sounded pleased. "Brandon, I have good news. Elise's attorney wants to settle out of court." "What are they offering?" "She keeps her personal belongings and her car. You keep the house, the beach house, your pension, and your investments. She waives any claim to alimony." I almost laughed. A week ago, Elise had been planning to take half of everything I owned. Now she was essentially walking away with nothing but the clothes on her back. What changed her mind? Reality. Her affair is well documented. She has no job, no income, and no realistic prospect of finding work in real estate anytime soon. She's in no position to make demands. And Owen? How's his divorce going? Jenna Mitchell is representing herself, and she's going for the throat. Full custody, the house, his pension, everything. Owen's looking at supervised visitation with his kids and a studio apartment if he's lucky. After I hung up, I felt a strange mixture of satisfaction and emptiness. The legal battles were essentially over, and I'd won completely. But winning a divorce felt less like victory and more like cleaning up after a disaster. Rick found me in the break room an hour later, staring into a cup of coffee that had gone cold. "You look like someone who just won the lottery and lost his best friend," he said. "I'm getting divorced." "Yeah, but you're getting divorced from a cheating wife who was planning to screw you over. That's like winning the lottery and losing your worst enemy." 15 years, Rick. 15 years of my life, gone. No, 15 years of experience. You learned what you don't want in a partner, you learned what red flags to watch for, and you learned that you're tougher than you thought. He had a point. A week ago, I'd been a man whose wife was cheating on him, and he didn't even know it. Today, I was a man who'd caught his cheating wife, exposed her affair, protected his assets, and earned the respect of everyone who mattered. Besides, Rick continued, you're 38 years old, you own 2 houses, you have a steady job, and you just proved you won't let anyone walk all over you, you're going to be fine. What about Elise? What's going to happen to her? That's not your problem anymore. She made her choices, and now she gets to live with the consequences. Wednesday evening brought another surprise. I was working in my garage when Mrs. Dorsey from down the street appeared with another casserole and a piece of gossip that made my day. "That woman of yours," she said, settling into my lawn chair like she planned to stay a while. "She's been going around the neighborhood, trying to get people to take her side." "How's that working out for her?" "About as well as you'd expect. She went to the Hendersons first, told them you'd been emotionally abusive, and that's why she had the affair. Mary Henderson told her to get off their property before she called the police." I could picture that conversation. Mary Henderson was a retired schoolteacher who'd raised 4 kids and didn't tolerate nonsense from anyone. Then she tried the Garcias, told them you'd been neglecting her, that you never paid attention to her needs. Rosa Garcia laughed in her face and told her that cheating wasn't the solution to marital problems. Anyone take her side? Not a soul. Everyone knows what kind of man you are, Brandon. You've helped half this neighborhood with home repairs, you've responded to medical emergencies, you've been nothing but decent to everyone. Nobody's buying her sob story. That night, I got a text from an unknown number. "This is all your fault. You destroyed my life." I showed it to Rick the next day. He read it and shook his head. "She still doesn't get it. She destroyed her own life when she decided to cheat. You just made sure there were consequences." Should I respond? Block the number and move on. Don't give her any more of your energy. But Elise wasn't ready to move on. Friday afternoon, I came home from work to find her sitting in her car outside my house. When she saw me, she got out and approached my truck. "Brandon, please, we need to talk." She looked worse than she had the previous week. Thinner, more desperate, with the hollow-eyed look of someone who wasn't sleeping or eating properly. "I told you to communicate through lawyers," I said. "The lawyers are handling the divorce. This is about us, about our life together." "We don't have a life together. We don't have an us. You ended that when you started your affair." "I ended it. You're the one who's been systematically destroying everything I care about. My job, my friends, my reputation. I didn't destroy anything. I exposed the truth. You destroyed your job when you used it to facilitate your affair. You destroyed your friendships when you turned them into accomplices. You destroyed your reputation when you decided to cheat on your husband. You got me fired. I informed your boss that you'd been lying to clients and using company time for personal business. She made the decision to let you go. You got Owen fired too. I reported his ethics violations to his company. They made the decision to terminate him." She stared at me with something approaching hatred. "You planned all of this. You wanted to ruin us. I wanted to catch you cheating, yes. Everything else was just consequences. Actions have consequences, Elise. That's how the world works. I'm living with my mother. I can't find work. No one in town will even talk to me. That's not my problem. How can you be so cold? After 15 years of marriage, how can you just write me off like I never mattered?" The question hit harder than I expected. For a moment, I saw the woman I'd married. Young, beautiful, full of dreams and plans for our future together, but that woman was gone, replaced by someone who'd been willing to destroy everything we'd built for a few afternoons with another man. "You wrote yourself off," I said quietly. "The moment you decided to cheat, you wrote off our marriage, our future, everything we'd built together. I'm just accepting reality. Brandon, please, go home, Elise. Sign the divorce papers, pack your things, and move on with your life. Find a new town, start over, learn from your mistakes, but leave me alone. I walked into my house and locked the door behind me. Through the window, I watched her stand in my driveway for a long time before finally getting in her car and driving away. That weekend, I decided to visit the beach house. I hadn't been there since the confrontation, and I needed to see if it still felt like home or if the affair had poisoned it for me. The drive took an hour, winding through forests and farmland before reaching the lake. The house sat on a rise overlooking the water, exactly as I'd designed it, rustic but elegant, built to last for generations. Inside, everything was exactly as we'd left it after the confrontation. The wine bottle Owen had brought was still on the counter. The fire extinguisher foam had been cleaned up, but you could still see faint stains on the hardwood floor. I stood in the living room where I'd caught them together, expecting to feel anger or sadness or betrayal. Instead, I felt something like relief. This house represented 2 years of my life, countless weekends of hard work, and a dream of growing old with the woman I loved. But it also represented freedom, proof that I could build something beautiful with my own hands, that I didn't need anyone else to create the life I wanted. I spent the afternoon walking the property, checking the dock, making a mental list of maintenance tasks that needed attention. By evening, I decided to keep the house, not as a monument to my failed marriage, but as a symbol of what I could accomplish when I set my mind to it. Sunday morning brought one final surprise. I was having coffee on the deck when a car pulled into the driveway. For a moment, I thought it might be Elise, coming for another desperate plea. Instead, it was Jenna Mitchell and her kids. "I hope you don't mind us dropping by," she said as Emma and Tyler ran toward the lake. The kids wanted to see the house where their father got covered in fire extinguisher foam. "They're welcome any time," I said. "How are they handling everything?" "Better than expected. Tyler's been telling everyone at school about how you stood up to his dad. He thinks you're some kind of superhero." We sat on the deck, watching the kids skip stones on the lake. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't experienced in months. No lies, no deception, no wondering what my spouse was really doing when they claimed to be working late. "Owen's been calling," Jenna said, begging me to reconsider, promising to change, threatening to fight for custody. "What did you tell him?" "I told him that trust, once broken, can't be repaired, that our kids deserve better than a father who lies to them, that I'd rather be alone than spend the rest of my life wondering if he was cheating again." "And the custody fight?" His lawyer advised him not to pursue it. Between the affair, the job loss, and the fact that the kids refuse to see him, he doesn't have much of a case. We sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Emma and Tyler explore the shoreline. "What are you going to do now?" Jenna asked. "Rebuild. Figure out what I want my life to look like without Elise in it. Any regrets?" I thought about that question for a long time. Did I regret catching Elise in her affair? Did I regret exposing her lies and destroying her career? Did I regret the nuclear option I'd chosen instead of trying to work things out? "No," I said finally. "I regret that it happened at all, but I don't regret how I handled it. She made her choices, and I made mine." "Good," Jenna said, "because what you did took courage. A lot of men would have just accepted it, maybe tried to pretend it never happened. You stood up for yourself and your marriage, even when it meant losing everything." As I watched her kids play by the water, I realized she was right. I had lost everything: my wife, my marriage, my vision of the future. But I'd also gained something invaluable: self-respect, the support of my community, and the knowledge that I would never again accept being treated with such disrespect. The fire that had consumed my marriage had also burned away everything weak and compromised in my life. What remained was stronger, cleaner, and entirely my own. But even then, sitting on the deck of the house I'd built with my own hands, I knew this wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of the final chapter. 3 weeks after Jenna's visit to the beach house, I got a call that changed everything. "Brandon, it's Margaret Walsh from Prestige Properties. I have a proposition for you." I was in the firehouse kitchen, heating up leftover pizza for lunch. "What kind of proposition?" "I'd like to list your beach house. I have a client who's specifically looking for waterfront property with custom construction. I think we could get top dollar." The idea had been in the back of my mind for weeks. The beach house was beautiful, but it was also expensive to maintain, and I wasn't sure I wanted to keep a place with so many memories attached to it. "What kind of money are we talking about?" "Based on comparable sales and the quality of your construction, I'd estimate $800,000, possibly more." I nearly dropped my pizza. I'd built the house for less than $300,000, doing most of the work myself. The property had appreciated significantly, but I hadn't realized how much. "There's one condition," Margaret continued. I'd want to use this sale as a showcase for the firm. Custom construction, waterfront property, luxury finishes. It's exactly the kind of listing that brings in high-end clients. What does that mean, exactly? Open house, professional photography, maybe a feature in the local lifestyle magazine, full marketing treatment. The irony wasn't lost on me. Elise had built her career on high-end property sales, and now her former boss wanted to use my house, the house Elise had planned to sell in the divorce, as the centerpiece of the company's marketing campaign. Do it, I said. The next 2 weeks were a whirlwind of activity. Professional photographers spent a day capturing every angle of the house and property. A staging company brought in furniture to replace the personal items I'd removed. Margaret's marketing team created brochures, online listings, and even a virtual tour. The open house was scheduled for a Saturday afternoon in late October. Margaret had invited her entire client list, plus every real estate agent in the area. It was going to be the social event of the season. I hadn't planned to attend. The house was staged, the agents were prepared, and I figured my presence would just complicate things. But Friday evening, Margaret called with an update that changed my mind. "Brandon, I thought you should know. Elise has been calling all week, asking about the listing. She seems to think she has some claim to the property. She signed a quitclaim deed as part of the divorce settlement. She has no legal interest in the house." "I know that, and you know that, but she's been telling people she co-owns the property and that the sale is unauthorized." "Is that going to be a problem?" "Not legally, no, but she's been spreading rumors, trying to discourage potential buyers. I'm concerned she might show up tomorrow and cause a scene." The thought of Elise disrupting the open house, potentially costing me hundreds of thousands of dollars out of spite, made me freeze. "I'll be there," I said. Saturday afternoon was perfect for an open house. Crisp autumn air, brilliant sunshine, and the kind of golden light that made everything look like a magazine photo. I arrived early to walk through the house one final time before the crowds arrived. The staging company had done incredible work. The place looked like a luxury resort, all clean lines and carefully arranged furniture. The personal touches that had made it home were gone, replaced by generic artwork and decorative objects that suggested wealth and sophistication. Margaret found me on the deck, looking out over the lake. "Having second thoughts?" she asked. "No, just saying goodbye. This place represented a lot of dreams that aren't going to come true." "New dreams, then. Better ones." The first potential buyers arrived at 1 o'clock, a young couple with serious money and serious interest. They spent 40 minutes going through every room, asking detailed questions about construction methods, maintenance costs, and property taxes. By 2 o'clock, the house was full of people. Real estate agents, potential buyers, curious neighbors, and what Margaret called lifestyle tourists, people who liked to tour expensive properties they could never afford. I was talking to a contractor who was interested in my custom woodwork when I saw her. Elise stood in the driveway, looking uncertain but determined. She'd dressed for the occasion in a business suit I'd never seen before, probably borrowed from her mother. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, but I could see the desperation in her eyes from 50 feet away. She made it halfway to the front door before Margaret intercepted her. "I'm sorry, but this is a private event," Margaret said politely but firmly. "I'm Elise Cole," my ex-wife replied. "This is my house." "Actually, this is Brandon Cole's house. You have no legal interest in this property." "I helped design it. I chose the finishes, the fixtures, the landscaping. I have every right to be here." Their conversation was drawing attention. Potential buyers were starting to stare, and I could see Margaret's professional composure beginning to crack. I walked over to defuse the situation before it got worse. "Hello, Elise," I said calmly. "You need to leave." "Brandon, please. I just want to see the house one more time. I have so many memories here." "You forfeited your right to those memories when you brought Owen here for your affair." The words carried in the crisp air, and suddenly every conversation in the vicinity stopped. 30 people were now listening to our exchange with the fascination of drivers passing a car accident. Elise's face flushed red. "You don't have to humiliate me in front of all these people." "I'm not humiliate you. I'm protecting my property sale from someone who has no legal right to be here." "I helped build this place?" "You brought me lunch and picked out paint colors. I built this place. I designed it, I framed it, I wired it, I plumbed it. Every board, every nail, every fixture represents my work. Our marriage. Our marriage ended when you started sleeping with Owen Mitchell. Our partnership ended when you tried to use this house for your affair. This is my house, my sale, and my decision." One of the potential buyers, an older man in an expensive suit, stepped closer. "Excuse me, is there some kind of legal dispute over this property?" Before I could answer, Elise jumped in. Yes, there is. I'm his wife, and this sale is happening without my consent. Ex-wife, I corrected firmly, and she signed a quitclaim deed transferring all interest in this property to me as part of our divorce settlement. Margaret produced a folder from her briefcase. I have copies of all the relevant documents right here. Mr. Cole has clear and undisputed title to this property. The potential buyer examined the documents, nodded, and handed them back. But the damage was done. The festive atmosphere of the open house had been replaced by an uncomfortable tension that was driving people away. I could see Margaret calculating the cost of Elise's disruption in lost sales and damaged reputation. Elise, I said quietly, you need to leave now. You're interfering with a legitimate business transaction. I'm not going anywhere. This is as much my house as yours. No, it isn't, and if you don't leave voluntarily, I'll call the police and have you removed for trespassing. You wouldn't dare. I pulled out my phone and started dialing. Sheriff's Department. This is Brandon Cole. I need an officer at 1247 Lakeshore Drive. I have someone trespassing on my property and interfering with a business transaction. Elise's confident facade cracked. Brandon, please, don't do this. You did this. You chose to come here. You chose to disrupt my sale. You chose to lie to potential buyers. Just like you chose to have an affair. The sheriff's deputy arrived 20 minutes later. Jim Morrison, a guy I'd gone to high school with. He listened to both sides of the story, examined the property documents, and made his decision quickly. Ma'am, you need to leave, he told Elise. You have no legal right to be on this property, and you're interfering with lawful business activities. This is ridiculous. I'm not doing anything wrong. You're trespassing, and you're causing a public disturbance. You can leave voluntarily, or I can arrest you. Your choice. Elise looked around at the crowd of people watching her humiliation, then back at me with pure hatred in her eyes. This isn't over, she said. Yes, it is, I replied. It's been over since the night I caught you cheating. She left with as much dignity as she could muster, but the damage to the open house was significant. Half the potential buyers had already gone, and the ones who remained seemed more interested in the drama than the property. Margaret was philosophical about it. We'll recover, she said. Good properties sell themselves, and this is a very good property. She was right. By the following Tuesday, we had 2 serious offers, both above asking price. The winning bid came from the young couple who'd been there when Elise showed up. They'd seen the house at its worst and still wanted it. The closing was scheduled for the Friday before Thanksgiving, but Elise wasn't finished yet. Thursday evening, the night before the closing, I got a call from my insurance agent. Brandon, I have some bad news. Someone vandalized your beach house last night. My heart sank. How bad is it? Bad enough that the closing might have to be delayed. You need to get out there and assess the damage. I drove to the beach house in the dark, my headlights cutting through fog that had rolled in from the lake. The damage was visible before I even got out of the truck. Someone had spray-painted liar and cheater across the front of the house in red letters 3 feet high. Every window on the ground floor had been broken. The front door was hanging open, and I could see debris scattered across the hardwood floors. I called the sheriff's department, then walked through the house cataloging the destruction. Furniture had been overturned, walls had been kicked in, and someone had poured what smelled like bleach all over the custom kitchen cabinets I'd built by hand. It was senseless, vindictive destruction designed to hurt me as much as possible. Deputy Morrison arrived 30 minutes later, along with a crime scene photographer. They documented everything, dusted for fingerprints, and took my statement. Any idea who might have done this? Morrison asked. I have a pretty good idea. Your ex-wife? She was here yesterday, causing problems at the open house. She made it clear she wasn't happy about the sale. Can you prove she did this? Not directly, but who else would have motive? Morrison nodded grimly. We'll investigate, but vandalism cases are hard to solve without witnesses or physical evidence. I spent the night at a local motel, then returned to the house Friday morning with a contractor to assess the repair costs. The damage was extensive, but not irreparable. About $30,000 to fix everything and return the house to showing condition. The buyers were understanding, but firm. They'd close on the house as planned, but only at a reduced price that reflected the damage. I ended up losing $50,000 from my expected sale price. That afternoon, as I signed the closing documents, I made a decision that would define the final chapter of this whole nightmare. Elise had cost me $50,000 with her vindictive destruction. She'd tried to sabotage my fresh start out of spite and jealousy. She'd refused to accept that her actions had consequences. It was time to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Saturday morning, I drove to the address where Elise was staying, her mother's house in a modest neighborhood across town. I parked across the street and waited. At 10:30, Elise emerged from the house, carrying a laundry basket. She looked tired and defeated, nothing like the confident woman who'd walked out on our marriage 2 months earlier. I followed her to the laundromat, parked nearby, and went inside. She was loading clothes into a washing machine when she saw me. Her face went pale, and she looked around nervously, probably wondering if I was there to confront her about the vandalism. "Hello, Elise," I said calmly. "We need to talk." "I don't have anything to say to you." "That's fine. I have something to say to you." I pulled out my phone and opened the video I'd recorded the night before. It showed Elise's car parked near the beach house, captured by a neighbor's security camera. The timestamp showed she'd been there around midnight, exactly when the vandalism occurred. "This video is going to the sheriff's department on Monday morning," I said, "along with a formal complaint for criminal mischief and destruction of property." Elise's hands shook as she poured detergent into the washing machine. "You can't prove I did anything." "I can prove you were there. I can prove you had motive. I can prove you cost me $50,000 with your vindictive destruction." "It's your word against mine. Actually, it's your criminal record against my reputation as a firefighter and upstanding citizen. How do you think that's going to play out?" She slammed the washing machine lid closed and turned to face me. "What do you want?" "I want you to leave town, pack your things, move somewhere else, and start over. Stop trying to sabotage my life, stop spreading lies about me, and stop pretending you're the victim in this situation." "And if I don't?" "Then you go to jail for vandalism, and I sue you in civil court for the damages. Either way, your life here is over." Tears started flowing down her cheeks. "Brandon, please. I have nothing left. No job, no money, no friends. I'm living with my mother like I'm 16 years old again." "That's not my problem. You made your choices, and now you get to live with the consequences." "I made a mistake." "You made a series of deliberate choices. You chose to have an affair. You chose to lie to me for months. You chose to plan a future with another man while you were still married to me. You chose to vandalize my property when I tried to move on with my life." I was angry. "You were selfish. You destroyed our marriage for your own gratification, and then you tried to destroy my fresh start when you realized you couldn't handle the consequences." Other people in the laundromat were starting to stare. Elise noticed and lowered her voice. "What if I can't find anywhere to go?" "That's not my problem either. You're 31 years old with a college degree and 15 years of work experience. Figure it out." I started to leave, then turned back one final time. "Elise, I want you to understand something. I loved you for 15 years. I would have done anything for you, given you anything you wanted, spent the rest of my life making you happy. All you had to do was stay faithful." "Brandon, you threw all of that away for a few afternoons with Owen Mitchell. You traded a lifetime of love and security for a cheap affair that meant nothing to either of you. That was your choice, and now you get to live with it." I left her standing in the laundromat, crying over a basket of laundry that probably represented everything she owned in the world. Monday morning, I filed the criminal complaint and the civil lawsuit. Tuesday afternoon, I got a call from Elise's mother. "Brandon, please. She's learned her lesson. She's moving to Phoenix to stay with her cousin. Just drop the charges." "When is she leaving?" "This weekend." "Then I'll drop the charges when I see proof she's gone." Friday evening, I drove past her mother's house. The driveway was empty, and there was a "for rent" sign in the front yard. Elise was gone. I called the sheriff's department and withdrew the complaint. I called my lawyer and dropped the civil suit. I'd gotten what I wanted. Elise out of my life permanently. That night, I sat in my living room with a beer and a sense of completion I hadn't felt in months. The house was quiet, clean, and entirely mine. The divorce was final, the beach house was sold, and my cheating ex-wife was someone else's problem now. My phone buzzed with a text from Jenna Mitchell. "Heard Elise left town. How are you feeling?" "Free," I texted back. "Good. You deserve better than what she put you through." She was right. I did deserve better. And now, for the first time in months, I had the chance to find it.